What if the biggest toy store in the world paid its most dangerous rival to destroy it? This isn't a hypothetical question. It's the true story of Toys R Us. The company didn't just fail to adapt to the internet. It was strategically dismantled. And the fatal blow came from a partner it hired for protection. Toys R Us signed a deal that it believed would secure its future online. Instead, it funded its own assassination, handing its killer the blueprint, the customers, and the data to do the job. For decades, Toys R Us was more than a store. It was a kingdom for kids. A sprawling warehouse of joy with endless aisles stacked to the ceiling with every toy imaginable. In the 1990s, it was the undisputed category king, commanding over 25% of the massive US toy market. They were a retail titan. But as the new millennium approached, a new threat emerged from the digital world. A small, online bookseller called Amazon.com was growing at an alarming rate. Toys R Us knew it had to conquer the internet, but its own website was a disaster. It was clumsy, expensive, and couldn't handle the traffic. So, in the year 2000, they made a decision that would seal their fate. They partnered with their biggest future competitor. So how did a deal designed to save the world's greatest toy store become the very weapon that brought it down? How did Jeff Bezos use Geoffrey the giraffe as a Trojan horse to conquer an entire industry? That's the question we're answering today. To understand this catastrophic deal, we have to go back to 1999. The dot-com bubble was in full swing. E-commerce was the buzzword that struck fear into every brick-and-mortar CEO. Toys R Us was a master of physical retail. Their entire business was built on massive stores, complex supply chains, and in-person shopping experiences. Their attempt to move online, toysrus.com, was a predictable failure. The site was plagued with technical glitches. During the 1999 holiday season, it famously failed to fulfill thousands of orders, leaving children without presents and parents furious. The company's reputation was shattered online. They were facing a classic innovator's dilemma. Their profitable, established business model was being threatened by a new, unproven technology that they didn't understand. Building a world-class e-commerce operation from scratch would require a complete cultural shift and hundreds of millions in investment, with no guarantee of success. They had the #1 brand in toys. They had the best relationships with manufacturers like Mattel and Hasbro. But online, they were amateurs. And they knew it. They needed a guide in this new digital wilderness. In August of 2000, Toys R Us announced what seemed like a brilliant solution. They signed a landmark 10-year strategic partnership with Amazon. The terms of the deal looked perfect on paper. Toys R Us would do what it did best: select, buy, and manage the inventory of toys. They were the experts, the merchandisers. Amazon would do what it did best: run the website, manage the warehouses, handle the shipping, and provide customer service. They were the e-commerce engine. On Amazon's website, a new, co-branded Toys Games tab would appear. When customers clicked it, they would be in the exclusive Toys R Us storefront. In exchange for this, Toys R Us would pay Amazon. The fee was reportedly $50 million per year, plus a percentage of all sales. For the Toys R Us board, this was a masterstroke. They instantly solved their technology problem. They outsourced their biggest weakness to the best player in the game. They gained immediate access to Amazon's rapidly growing customer base and its legendary fulfillment network. They were now an internet powerhouse overnight, without having to build a thing. It seemed like a win-win. But they had overlooked one crucial detail. They weren't just hiring a service provider. They were inviting a predator into their home. For the first few years, the deal worked flawlessly. Sales on the co-branded storefront surged. Toys R Us was finally making serious money online. But under the surface, something far more valuable was being transferred from Toys R Us to Amazon. That asset was data. With every sale, Amazon was learning. It was vacuuming up unprecedented amounts of information. They learned which toys were bestsellers at Christmas. They learned the exact price points customers were willing to pay for a Barbie dream house or a Lego set. They learned the demographics of toy buyers, their shopping habits, and their shipping locations. Toys R Us was essentially paying Amazon for a multi-year, multi-million-dollar market research study on its own customers. Then, the deal's fatal flaw became apparent. The exclusivity clause. Toys R Us believed they would be the only major toy seller on Amazon.com. But Amazon interpreted the contract differently. Soon, other third-party merchants began listing toys for sale on the Amazon platform. At first, it was small sellers. Then, it was major competitors. Suddenly, the exclusive Toys R Us storefront was just one option among many. A customer searching for a board game would now see listings from Toys R Us right next to identical products from other sellers, often at a lower price. Amazon was turning its platform into an open marketplace, and Geoffrey the giraffe was just one more merchant in the bazaar. The walls of the kingdom had been torn down from the inside. By 2004, Toys R Us realized it had been betrayed. They sued Amazon, claiming a breach of the exclusivity agreement. The legal battle dragged on for 2 years. In 2006, the court sided with Toys R Us and granted them the right to terminate the partnership. On the surface, it was a victory. But in reality, it was a death sentence. Think about what had happened during those 6 critical years. From 2000 to 2006, the world of e-commerce had evolved at lightning speed. While Toys R Us was coasting on the Amazon partnership, Amazon itself was innovating relentlessly. During this period, Amazon had used the toy category to refine its marketplace, strengthen its fulfillment centers, and build customer loyalty. They had also launched Amazon Prime in 2005, fundamentally changing customer expectations for shipping. Most importantly, Toys R Us had spent 6 years training its most loyal customers to do one thing: go to Amazon.com to buy toys. They had effectively transferred their brand equity online to their biggest rival. When the deal ended in 2006, Toys R Us was back at square one. They now had to build their own website from scratch. But it was no longer 2000. They were now competing against a data-rich, logistically perfected, customer-obsessed juggernaut that they had helped create. A juggernaut that knew exactly which toys their customers wanted, and how to sell them better and cheaper. The fight was already over. They just didn't know it yet. And that's the secret. This wasn't just a bad partnership. This was the strategic outsourcing of a company's soul. Toys R Us saw e-commerce as a technical problem. A website. A logistics network. A cost center. They paid Amazon to make that problem go away. But Jeff Bezos understood that e-commerce was never just about technology. It was about owning the customer relationship. It was about gathering data. By handing Amazon the keys to its online kingdom, Toys R Us gave away the 2 most valuable assets in the digital economy: its direct connection to its customers, and the data those customers generated. They thought they were hiring a plumber to fix a leak. In reality, they invited a master architect into their house, who then learned the entire floor plan, copied the keys, and built an identical, better house right next door. The deal allowed Amazon to learn the toy business on someone else's dime, with zero risk. It was the ultimate Trojan horse strategy. If you're finding this breakdown insightful, take a moment to hit the subscribe button. We release deep dives like this every week, and your support helps us unlock the next big strategy. The fall of Toys R Us is a brutal lesson in modern business strategy. It teaches us that you can never, ever outsource a core competency, especially your relationship with your customer. In the 20th century, a company's strength was its physical assets and supply chains. In the 21st century, a company's most vital asset is the data it collects and the customer experience it controls. Toys R Us thought they were in the business of selling physical toys. Amazon knew they were in the business of customer relationships, and toys were just one more category to dominate. The tragedy is that Toys R Us paid them to learn how. It's a mistake that ultimately led them through years of decline and a painful bankruptcy in 2017, a story that would not have happened without this single, catastrophic deal. If you learned something new, Hit the like button and subscribe for more strategy breakdowns. And let us know in the comments, what company's strategy should we unlock next?